Hey, hello everybody. This is GW. Just happy to have you here with me again. Please, if you like what I'm doing, go down below, subscribe, follow, do whatever it is you got to do, and please make any comments that you want to make on this. I'd love to know whether people are enjoying them or not, and even if you don't agree with me. So remember, this is GW. And today I'm talking again about what's going on in the world. I'm going to spend about 10 minutes here today talking about things that have gone on in the last 10 days. So I did my first podcast on government thoughts day 10. And so this one is now my government thoughts for day 20. And it's going to be an ongoing project. Now, I'm not sure that I'll do it every 10 days, but I am going to do it in a way so that it just kind of keeps track of what day it is and how long it's been since January 20th, 2025. And we'll see how long this continues. And I will probably keep this up, as long as there's interesting things to say. But I don't see any reason why I shouldn't just bring this up and talk about it because there's always going to be a lot of things to say. You have to remember now that Custer, that little bighorn, he looked around and he said, the one thing that's nice about the situation that we're in right now is that we're in a target rich environment. And that's what I kind of feel like I'm in right now, a target rich environment of things to talk about that might be going on with the government, good and bad. And I hope that I'll be reasonably balanced when I go through that. I have a feeling I'm going to be leaning a little bit on the not conservative side, but we'll see in the long run. So let's start this off with what's going on at the FBI. In addition to the senior guys being essentially fired by the new administration very quickly, they then asked the FBI to submit names and information concerning all the people in the FBI who had supported the January 6th committee investigations and who took part in any part of the criminal investigations that the January 6th committee findings seem to support. So they submitted, I don't know the exact number, but I believe it was over 1,000 names. And they submitted them in a way that the folks, the Doge effort would have to work a little bit to get the actual information. What I heard was that they only reported the employee number to comply with the directive that they received from Doge. So it's not that they can't get the other information, and I'm sure they will, but it's a bit more effort for them to do so. Now, Trump has said that he's not going to fire these individuals, not all of them, but he is going to evaluate them and see who it is that he wants, that he considers to be corrupt or not corrupt. Now, I'm not sure what the criteria is for that, but I'm pretty sure it's not the same criteria that I would use for that. Now, interestingly, the administration has also issued an executive order concerning the immigration enforcement and how state and local law enforcements may be used to support the immigration enforcement efforts. Now, that executive order came out on January 25th. Now, the Tennessee legislature, and probably other states in the country, but the Tennessee legislature then had a bill go into committee, come out of committee, and I believe it's now passed and it's on the desk of the governor to sign. Don't know if he signed it yet or not. But what I understand it says is that basically that if an official votes against federal government immigration policy in favor of sanctuary policies, that government official can be charged with a felony. Now that has to have a chilling effect on any legislature. In my mind, if a legislature has a choice to vote yes or no, and no means that he's going to be or potentially going to be charged with a felony, that just doesn't seem like a way that we need to do business in our governments. Just doesn't. Now, I'm sure that we've all heard about the tariffs that have been going on and the threats that we have of the tariffs that he has, the administration has put out there, and specifically with Mexico and China and Canada, and how we now have had those tariffs in place for a couple of days, and the other countries have come back and discussed things. And the Mexicans have worked with the Trump administration to provide something. I believe it was some Mexican troops that are going to patrol their side of the border. At least I believe that's what I heard is happening there. And then that was enough so that Trump lifted the tariff on them. And, hopefully they actually work that side of the border to maintain control of it and don't just go out and have a nice bivouac and spend a couple weeks in the desert. Now, also heard that Canada was given a tariff, and Canada also worked with the administration to come up with basically saying that they would work harder to stop the opioid and fentanyl problem coming across the Canadian border into the United States. Now, my understanding is that this is less than 1% of the fentanyl problem that we have here in the United States. So I'm not sure that why that was such a big deal to be brought up in the first place. But the fact is that it was brought up, and the two countries then talked it out with the United States. Things happen, and Trump has lifted those particular tariffs. I am not confident, though, that there weren't other things added on to that may not have gotten as much public attention as just the bigger issue that were being addressed. Now, the China issue is interesting because last I heard, we put a tariff out there on certain Chinese-made goods, and they responded by putting or threatening to put an even bigger tariff out on some of our exports to China. And so that's just the way the world works today. It certainly seems like making the threat and doing everything we can to have that threat be acknowledged, make it a big threat, and then we can accept a lesser response from the country and claim success. That strategy, by the way, is from Trump's book, and is how Trump has handled negotiations his entire life. Now, you can say he's been a remarkably successful man. Well, he's president of the United States, so I would have to say he is successful. But he has not been remarkably successful. He's really not a very good businessman. And the strategy of handling that type of negotiations in that manner is as far lacking in political savvy as anything I have ever heard. And it just doesn't explain to me how he thinks this is going to work in the long run. You cannot go out there, cry wolf, and when they come back and say coyote, they go okay, and have that be how you deal with this from time after time after time. Just not very political savvy in the long run. It's going to be a real challenge in the international market. But it's interesting, and it does explain why contractors that he has worked with over the last 50 years that he's been in business don't jump up and down and say how wonderful he was to work with. And they don't say how fair he was to work with. Think about that. Now, other things that have happened here in the last 10 days is you recently, you got the Office of Management and Budget, the OMB, and the fact that Elon Musk and his little team of young IT interns, and I'm sure they're very sharp, but they seem to all be very young. But they've been given access to all the information that OMB has available to it on their network. Now, that's a lot. All the activities going on, all the emails, everything that goes on inside, outside OMB, it's really a risk, a national security risk. And I believe that it would look like a very lucrative target to any foreign adversary that might come up and want to look at something in the United States. The Treasury and the government payment network has also been compromised and has been given to the Doge people. Now, just off the top of my head, and just from personal experience, One thing that's going to be given, has been given to these IT interns that they have, is all your Social Security information. Any person who receives Social Security, personal, certainly do myself. Any person who receives Social Security, well, nearly every payment is made with a direct deposit. So if they have all that information, then they have my name, they have my address, they have Social Security numbers, they have bank account information, they have all this information available. Certainly a lucrative target for anybody with nefarious thoughts. Now, just another part of that is that even more risky in my mind is when you take a look at the government payments section that has also been provided to Doge. Well, there's activities that go on at any agency which you have to look at and say, the fact that we do that is sensitive. Doesn't mean it's wrong. It doesn't mean it's unlawful. It just means it's sensitive. It's classified. So when you take a look and do the obvious one, take a look at DOD and take a look at the activities that are going on. Of course, there are activities in DOD that are sensitive and classified. There's training activities, there's training locations that have to be made so that the average person cannot just walk in and say, I'd like to go in and drive around the base here a little bit. So, it's, if you take a look at those type of information that's going out and think about the other departments, the other like State Department or any of the intel agencies, it's obvious that something is going to be in support of a classified or sensitive activity, and that would make the payment classified. And it's just amazing to me that we the people, would allow this to go ahead. And if we aren't already there, we're rapidly approaching the time it'll be impossible to get this back under control and have it look like anything that we're accustomed for it to be. Now, I also saw that the person being put forward to be the FBI director, he's been identified as being an executive producer, got paid $25,000, but be an executive producer on a propaganda film, an 8-part documentary that can be traced back to a Russian entity. Just doesn't seem that a guy who has that type of ties and that type of activities in his background needs to be the head of the FBI. Now, as I think about what I've been talking about, it doesn't seem like I'm being very one-sided or two-sided on this. I really want to be fair as I talk about these things. And I'm certain that there's things that have been done or an executive order that's been signed that I would agree with or at least see the need for. For instance, this morning I saw a long list on social media, and it was a long list purportedly published of wasteful spending by the government. These are, line item things in the budget probably. And now it was extremely long, but it listed a dollar amount and it listed, a title of what the spending was for. And you could, interpret what the spending was for through the title. It had no further information. And I don't disagree that list needs to be looked at and evaluated very, very soon. And that a reasonable adult needs to make a recommendation to Congress on whether or not these programs are worthwhile for the American public to fund through their taxes or not. Now, I am fully in favor of the government running in a streamlined, efficient manner. I find it amazing that so many people think that what we're doing right now, what we've done in the last 20 days, that this is the start of a successful activity. The effect that this has had the ability of our government to be able to support the country and to support efforts around the world. It's just unbelievable to me that we've gotten to this point. And I don't know whether to hope that we're taking the time to really think about what it is that we're doing. But I do think that if you're in support of this or you're not in support of this, it is time to really be vocal about it. Get hold of your member of Congress. Talk to whoever the staffer is that answers the phone. Make sure that your feelings are known and at the highest levels. Talk to your city councilman. Talk to your state folks. Talk to anybody in the government that'll listen to you, to sit there and make sure that they're aware that there's people out here that are not thinking that these are necessarily good ideas. They're not all bad, but there's so many of these that just relate to, in my mind, to throwing the baby out with the bathwater. You just can't put the genie back in the bottle. So please take the time to actively ensure that the best interests of the American people are being accomplished with this administration. All right, I'm GW. Hope you enjoyed this. This has been a little bit longer than I meant it to be, but I hope follow, subscribe, do whatever you need to do. But I'll talk to you again here in a week or two, and we'll see where we've been, where we're going, and see what I think anyway. And it should be fun. Thanks a lot.